Hi everyone. Now some people think I'm a bit of a mug for doing this campaign, for spending so many years doing it, for committing so much of my career to it. But I'm committed to this campaign for two reasons really. One, I just think it's really important. I think we need to change the politics of this country, the way in which we're governed, the political culture, and get rid of this institution which is clearly not fit for purpose. I also think that it's very achievable if people step up and get on with it. Now it's been a while since I've heard this, but people still occasionally say to me, well, yes, I agree with you about the monarchy, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And my only answer can be, well, why not? It has to happen in someone's lifetime, so why not ours? Now, big change does happen. We've all seen it, and usually it's a slow burn issue followed by rapid succession of events that leads to lasting change. But the problem for us is that the monarchy appears to have universal support. It appears to be a solid, permanent fixture of British life. But the reality is that most people don't care that much, and the royals are on much shakier ground than it might first seem. Now, of course, it's not happened before either, so Britain has never democratically chosen to do away with the royals. The one time we did get rid of a monarchy, it was another age, a different country. But the monarchy's longevity also gives the impression of immovability, which is one reason why they try to draw a direct line between William the Conqueror and Elizabeth Windsor, even though today's monarchy bears little relationship to the royals of medieval England. But big change happens, as I said, and there are plenty of events over the past 50 years that tell a simple story. When big change happens, it's rarely expected and it happens pretty fast. Now, the collapse of the Soviet Union, fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of apartheid all happened within 5 years, from 1989 to 1994. And yes, of course, after years of conflict and pressures building on unsustainable regimes, but the big shifts happened fairly suddenly and pretty quickly. Also, if you go back to 2000, the year that George W. Bush was elected president and travelled to the US, ask anyone when it's likely America will have an African American president. The predictions would have ranged from 30 to 50 years or longer. And yet it happened just 8 years later when Obama succeeded Bush to the White House. And gay marriage, of course, had minority support in 2005, yet within a few years support became widespread and mainstream across most of Europe, North America, and around the world, from parts of South America to East Asia. Now, big things change and big change happens, and they change because people step up and make them change. So it feels like a hard slog and a mug's game for those pushing for change when it's unfashionable to do so, but it is increasingly possible on this issue, and here's why. When I was growing up in the 1980s, it felt like everyone loved the royals. This impression was reinforced by the limited access to news and opinion, which was filtered through 3 news broadcasters and a handful of national newspapers. Now, to a large extent, that impression was accurate, in so much as people felt positively towards the royals, but it hid the substantial number of people who were indifferent or hostile towards the monarchy. Now, the media and political environment was such that public figures were shy about making their views known, so there was no real advocacy for this issue that was going to have any lasting impact. Now, today the picture is very different. Now, the next point I cannot stress enough: the British public are not falling for royal spin. They aren't brainwashed or sycophantic, and the sooner we all understand that, the quicker that we can engage effectively with the millions of voters who are open to persuasion. The vast bulk of people simply don't care that much either way. Despite the wall-to-wall and deferential coverage given to major royal events such as the royal weddings and the Jubilee by all sections of the media, coverage which still gives a distorted view of public attitudes, the polling tells a different story. And firstly, yes, the headline figure, when asked if people want to get rid of the monarchy, is generally 20% on our side and 75% against. But that 75% is not made up of royalists. It's worth stopping to think about what people are being asked and what answer they're really giving, because essentially they're being asked to comment on something they've probably not really thought that much about, and most people have been led to believe that the monarchy is harmless, that it's good for the economy, and that everyone else likes it and enjoys it and supports it. And those 3 myths help sustain that high level of support. But it's not active support, it's more, well, you're asking me if I want to get rid of something, I've not really thought about it, so why would I say yes? So it is kind of a default position, and when you're doing polling about big change, the status quo always has a built-in default advantage. In 2018, Republic commissioned a YouGov poll at the time of Harry and Meghan's wedding, and here's what it said. 66%, 2/3 of the population, were not interested in the Harry and Meghan wedding. Most will have or were going to have a normal weekend, that was 60%, or will be working on the Saturday, that was 10%. 57% believed that the royals should pay the full cost of the wedding, including the cost of policing and security, which of course didn't happen. That's 57% said that. We then asked if, given the choice, they would want to contribute their own taxes to the wedding, and 76% said no. And what was interesting is that the poll also shows lukewarm attitudes towards the Queen and Prince Charles. Now, as expected, a clear majority, 66%, say they like the Queen, but only a third say they like her a great deal. Meanwhile, 46% would prefer someone else, unspecified, to succeed the Queen, while only 37% want Charles. And should the monarchy come to an end after the Queen's reign, only a third would be very disappointed. And the meddling of Prince Charles is a real problem for royals. Support for the monarchy could fall by as much as 38% if a future King Charles was known to be influencing government policy. So, as I said at the time, this YouGov poll shows a very clear picture of a nation disinterested and fairly apathetic about the royal family. Now, I'm not saying for a minute that we're a nation of Republicans. Not yet, but we've stopped being a nation of royalists. It's worth remembering that this poll was after year on year on year of coverage of royal weddings, jubilees and births. Yet the polling doesn't show that these big events had the slightest impact on the public. Now, of course, a country in love with the royals wouldn't mind paying for the wedding. A nation of royalists would be keenly following the wedding coverage, and people who loved the Queen would say so, unequivocally. Now, I'm constantly being told that the nation does love the Queen and the royal family, so clearly that is not true. And we all know this isn't true. If you talk to people in the street, if you talk to friends and colleagues, most of the time people just don't really care that much either way. They're just not that interested in the royals. So when we were told that the royal wedding was a national celebration, clearly that wasn't true when 2/3 of the population simply were not interested. Now, we've got a long way to go. I don't want you thinking I'm playing down the scale of the challenge. It is a big challenge we've got ahead of us, and there's no guarantees of success. But it's important that we understand the nature of that challenge and understand where the majority of British people are on this issue. Indifferent and, crucially, open to persuasion. Now, I know they're open to persuasion because I've seen people change their minds during the course of many debates that I've been a part of. The biggest challenge is getting the arguments out there, raising awareness of how mad, bad and ridiculous the monarchy is, and selling a powerful, positive alternative. Now, the good news is the next decade is going to be a really challenging one for the royals and is going to provide opportunities for the Republic. The Prince Andrew scandal, of course, is not going away. It's just been revealed that he was not telling the truth when he spoke to Emily Maitlis in that awful BBC interview. It raises serious questions about who else knew what and when. Harry and Meghan aren't going away either. They're going to be a constant thorn in the royal side and a reminder that the monarchy can't cope with change or with outsiders joining the firm. And that comparison between Harry and Meghan in America and the Windsors in the UK will usually play poorly for the royals, particularly when the couple are compared with the odd Charles and the grey William. But more importantly, it's very likely that this will be the decade the Queen dies and that Prince Charles becomes King Charles. Now, you may think it's a little bit impolite or insensitive to mention this, but of course the monarchy is based on births, deaths and marriages. They invented it, not me. That's the system they want, and so we have to accept that the death of the Queen is going to be a major political and constitutional event. Of course, the time immediately after the Queen's death and the run-up to the funeral and so on is not going to be a time to campaign, but there's going to be a coronation, there's going to be this announcement that Charles is automatically king, and this is going to be the first succession that most of us have ever seen. Now, of course, the last succession was in 1952, the coronation was in 1953, but all these decades later, rightly or wrongly, the Queen is the only royal who commands that kind of respect and deference. It is the Queen's longevity that has largely sustained the monarchy for so long. With the Queen gone and the prickly, eccentric and demanding King Charles on the throne, with all the questions that raises about his political interference, that's going to completely change the relationship between the public and the palace. And the only two people left in the wings will be Kate and William. Not the most inspiring people. And we also shouldn't lose sight of what a big moment a succession will be. This will be the first change of monarch in the UK since 1952, when the country was entirely different, when indifference was widespread, news media even more limited. The next succession will be the first in the modern era of the internet, social media, 24-hour news, and at a time when everyone has an opinion and people want to be heard. There's no way that Charles's coronation is going to be met by the same fawning that we saw decades ago. Well, not for most people anyway. And of course these big events will get big crowds, they always do. But the much larger crowds at home, doing their shopping, heading off to work, the people who don't care about the royals, who will be left on the sidelines wondering why their views don't matter, they'll be open to persuasion. And of course, unlike 1952, there is an active, growing Republican campaign in the country which is going to provide a voice for those millions of people who are not represented in that coverage. But ultimately, it's not about the royals or even the Constitution. It's about values, and in a very real sense, we are a nation of small r Republicans. We believe in democracy. We believe in our right to a fair say and how we're governed. We don't instinctively respect national institutions anymore. That respect evaporates quickly when the institution is exposed as corrupt or useless. So the decade ahead is going to be an interesting one, and one that presents real challenges for both royals and Republicans. Now, our challenge is to understand where the public are on this issue, to tap into our shared values, and to step up and make that change happen. So that's it from me for now. Don't forget, if you want to help make that change happen, you can go over to republic.org.uk, where you can find out how you can get involved. You can join, donate. You can email us at youtube@republic.org.uk if you want to say anything about this video, or of course go down to the comments section and join the discussion there. Share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and get talking to friends, family and colleagues about what we're doing. See you next time.